Well. Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. And welcome to another episode of Legacy Loading, the show where we watch gaming documentaries and comment on them. Usually we do older ones. This one's kind of a newer one, so this will be our first time we're deviating away from the G4 Icons TV series. And joining me today is one of the biggest Nintendo fans I know, Mr. Nerdporeal Lifeform. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Oh well, we are fellow Illinois boys, so we know it's been hot and sticky and terrible weather over here for the past
Oh,
week.
you ain't kidding, bro. You ain't kidding.
So, uh, I know that you work a fun job, but I don't know. Are you outside a lot, or are you more in an air conditioned building?
Well, I work in an office. I go outside during lunch, so I go for walks and all that. And I've been getting a lot of sunburn because of not wearing a hat. So I've been doing that with this Mario hat that I bought in Japan
So what you're
with
saying is,
with our mutual buddy.
I was gonna say, so you're saying is that you look like a matchstick, just white with a
Pretty much.
red head.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I'm not as lucky. I work a warehouse job. So it's been pretty hot in there, and the old adage, heat rises.
Yep.
So I think my racks where we got all our stuff that I have to grab from, I think they go up to like 2 or 3 stories. So like when we get up to the top, some of those days are just I was like, oh, I'm dying. So,
I've
but
been
yeah,
there. I've worked in a warehouse before, so yeah, I know how it is.
yeah. But today we got a life story of a Nintendo icon, a one Mr. Gunpei Okio. I'm going to have them pronounce it correctly and not offend anyone else for a second time. But a fun, interesting life story. Obviously, I post his birth and death. He was born in 1941, and he passed away sadly in 1997 when I was 6 years old. So I'm looking forward to this interview, or not interview, I should say. This documentary is an hour long, hour and 3 minutes total. So it's going to be a rather long one, and hopefully everyone hope you enjoy this and learn a lot about a person I'm not too familiar with. And Brian, you said you were more familiar with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Nintendo fan. I mean, my first game was Super Mario Brothers, and my first system was the NES. So, once the internet, once the internet became a thing, and I started using it more, especially in college and thereafter, and I started reading up on the history of all the things I liked, and Nintendo was one of those things. And I learned about Miyamoto. I learned about a lot of the game series I liked, and I found out about Gunpei Yokoi or something, however you pronounce it. And it's just it's funny talking. It's funny learning about what Nintendo used to be because I grew up, it was always a video game company. As far as I know, Mario was always a thing. Well, I learned that Nintendo wasn't always a video game company, and it was over 100 years old. It was established in 1889,
Yeah.
and it's wild how one president who was not happy with the state of the industry that Nintendo was originally in wanted to expand and do more. And Gunpei Yokoi was one of the people that helped him achieve that vision. And this is a very inspiring story, and it's a shame that he was taken from us too soon. There's a lot of conspiracy theories behind his death. So,
Yes.
but
Him and
yeah,
General Patton were killed for the same reasons. They hated communists.
yep. Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that about Yokoi.
I'm not being serious.
You're not being serious. Okay, because I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know that.
either. He might have. I don't know. He could have hated Russians just as much.
I mean, I figured since he's works for Nintendo, I figured he'd be a staunch capitalist.
And then we got Mr. Ando and Mr. Angry Canadian joining us today. Hello, boys. How are you doing? And Ando, I'm so happy that you're grinding into Cabaret Club. I'm happy when people experience Yakuza 0. I can't wait to replay it again because I got it for the Switch too, and I want to see if they actually is like a bunch of changes. So with that being said, we're going to go right over here to the main show, and we're going to get started now. And also linked in the description of this video if you want to watch it watch it without commentary, you can watch it there too after you're done with this, or come back and watch this later after you watch it to hear our thoughts as well. So let's begin.
Gunpei Yokoi. Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto called him his mentor, and Pokemon creator Satoshi Tajiri said he was like a father and a teacher. Yokoi's famous for Game & Watch, Game Boy, and inventing the D-pad, but that is just...
I didn't know he invented the D-pad. That's interesting.
I didn't know that. I honestly didn't know that either. I thought the D-pad was. I don't even know if did Nintendo. I'm not even sure Nintendo invented the D-pad. Maybe they did.
I'm
interesting.
guessing they had to if he invented it. I have to guess it was when he worked at Nintendo, right?
Maybe there were earlier versions of a similar concept, and that because I was reading up on the D-pad. Apparently, there's a pivot that the D-pad's mounted to in the middle, and it doesn't allow you to press all the directional buttons at once. I forget what happens if that does, but it doesn't allow you to do that. So you can only press like up to 2 buttons at once. So yeah, cool. D-pad. Yeah,
it's the tip of the iceberg. When Nintendo was struggling in the 80s, he wiped out all their debt with a single invention and quadrupled the company's revenue. His philosophy was to take old technology and use it in fun ways no one had ever thought of before. To compete not on who's got the best microchips, but the best ideas.
I want to go back there for like a second.
Yeah, you gotta go back.
Playing the Switch instead of the...
There you go. There's a long one here.
And use it in fun ways no one had ever
Rob
thought
the
of
robot.
before.
Did you ever have Rob?
I never had Rob. I actually, what's weird, I wasn't familiar with Rob the robot until like one of the Smash Brothers games.
The Wii version, right?
I think so. Yeah. I'm not that much of a boomer.
I think I remember the Angry Video Game Nerd skit with him, but I also I think there was a funny X-Play skit when I was a kid where they like were using him in like the most debaucherous ways out there too. I gotta look into it and see if I can find that one day. It was so wild.
Or to compete not on who's got the best.
I think this is funny
but
because that looks like a real gun.
It does look like a real gun. I guess because of I guess because of the laws or something. That's why they made the Zapper originally gray, and then the one that I had that was later was orange.
Yeah, they put orange tips on them to make it easier to tell that they're not real guns, you know?
Yeah.
It's like hunting in reverse. You know, you wear a giant hunting vest that's bright orange so you don't get shot, but now
what's funny is, I mean, you see the Famicom right there. I mean, the NES, NES was better in every way. I mean, you watch a version like let's say Zelda or Zelda 2 versus on NES versus what the Famicom had. Like the music seems way more archaic than what you get on the NES, and I think even the visuals are the same, or the visuals are there's a big difference there. So, yeah, Nintendo is just seeing the dog jump over the lawn right there just brings back memories. That was the second game I ever played, first multiplayer.
Yeah, you know what's fun? Since we're talking about like the Famicom, did you know that the World Championship Edition that came out for the Switch, the one that was the NES and one was the Famicom version, the Japanese one got these as Joy-Cons?
No, I didn't.
In their version. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Ironically enough, since we're talking about memory lane a little bit there, that's when AC and I became like better friends because our version got the golden game cartridge, but then I saw that his version got the Famicom ones with the 2 Famicom Joy-Cons. I'm like, bro, you want to trade? So that was fun one. I still love this one. I love those Joy-Cons so much, but I don't touch them because I'm like, this is too cool.
Best ideas. Nintendo adopted his philosophy as their own, which is why nowadays we're playing the Switch instead of the Famicom 7. In fact, there never would have been a Famicom 1 without him, let alone Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, and all the rest. Nintendo would probably still be a little Japanese company no one
bought some of
had ever
those.
heard of, if it would even exist
Those
at
playing
all.
cards or what?
Miyamoto said it best.
Yeah, me
as
and
again,
AC
a
went to the
tearful-
Nintendo store, and I was like, "What should I buy?" I was looking for some Metroid stuff. They had no Metroid merchandise whatsoever because it's Japan.
Yeah.
But he told me that they were selling the Hanafuda cards, and I found a few. I bought a classic pair, which is basically what they showed right there, and then I bought a version that had like the Mario characters and all that. So yeah, I mean, talking about Yokoi's philosophy. I mean, that explains why like that they've always been behind in terms of like technology, because it was never there because of Yokoi and his philosophy. It's never been Nintendo's priority to be state of the art. It was to be innovative before anything. I think he calls it They call it lateral thinking outside the box type of strategy.
It's something to do with that too. Plus, it was also the GameCube. They stopped trying to compete in the silicon and went with another way after it failed so hard.
Oh, yeah.
That was another way too. There was another documentary I watched about that. I feel like that could be a later episode as well.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, when I was reading about that strategy of his, I was thinking about like the shift between the 3D Zelda the way it was from Ocarina of Time to Skyward Sword, and then you have something new and innovative like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and that kind of goes into that kind of supports the whole idea of just being innovative and not being and the thing is they do for years they've had conventions and standards and all that on designing games just so that they could keep making money and all that, but like every now and then they'll have an opportunity to be innovative, and as much as I bitch about those games because of how different they are and my boomer-esque self, they are innovative, and then that's why people love them. That's why it's the most successful games to date in that series. So
yeah. Also, another thing too is I like how there's a little Triforce on this tombstone over here.
Yeah. Where?
Right
I
there.
didn't even know. Oh, they're right there. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think he didn't work on. What's funny is he didn't work on Zelda. Or he didn't produce Zelda. He produced Metroid and Kid Icarus, the originals.
Yeah. At least I think this is a Triforce and not something to do with like Buddhism or something. So
no, I'll safely say it's a Triforce. I'm
gonna go with Triforce for now and apologize for my blasphemy if I'm wrong.
I wonder what those years. Oh, wait, what are those like supposed to be significant years or something?
That's what I don't know. So like this is the part
I'm
that
curious.
confuses me because I'm not I didn't grow up in Japan, so I'm not too familiar with what this custom is over here. Is this like a multiple grave plot or something like that? But I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
AC,
100%
tell
sure.
us. AC, tell us what it is.
Or better yet, ask someone who would know if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Eulogy at Yokoi's funeral. He made Nintendo what it is today.
True.
There's a saying to never write an autobiography because it will shorten your life, and that's exactly what happened. He wrote one in the summer of '97 and died in the fall.
Did
That's
you
crazy.
ever read this?
No, I didn't even know about this.
You should Google that right now. Let's see if there. I wonder if this got an English translation because this would probably be a good book to read. I didn't even know this.
I'm with you there. I'd love to find out more. I'm curious if all the sources that I've learned about Yokoi from I hate to say Wikipedia and from other articles stemmed from this.
I mean, maybe. Like I said, I don't know if this got an English translation. I mean, we got one for Iwata, so this would be a cool one to find out about.
Biographies where much of today's story comes from, along with his various writings and interviews
Oh, he was the
over
Game Boy
years,
creator. Okay.
and what those who
Yeah.
knew him best said after he was gone. Understand the man, and you'll understand Nintendo.
You know what?
Going to-
I gotta understand. Asian Regis Philbin. Do you see it?
Yeah, because of the gray right there.
Yeah.
You can put you on the hot seat if
Past,
who wants to be a
present,
millionaire.
and future. This is Gunpei Yokoi.
Yokoi.
I thought it was Yokoi. Oh well.
It's like
He
it
was
looks like
born
koi
in
fish.
Kyoto in 1941, 3 months before the Japanese Empire declared war on America in World War II.
They just threw
The
an
atomic bombs
bomb.
dropped just before his 4th birthday. Growing up, his father was an office worker at a chemical factory, with Gunpei the youngest of 4 children. Their father forced them to learn piano. His older siblings all shared a
Not shocking. An Asian being forced to learn piano. Not shocking.
Yeah, I opened my mouth. I took an interest in piano, and then I was forced to take piano lessons. So now I know music.
but Gunpei had to learn on his own. In the post-war era, it was common that families could only afford cheap toys made from tin or none at all, which meant as a kid, Gunpei had to be creative and make his own toys. He preferred making them from scratch with his neighbor's tools, rather than rely on a kit with step-by-step instructions. Firearms were a particular fascination, and he spent a lot of time swimming in the nearby Wakasa Bay, making harpoon guns to catch fish.
This guy is awesome already.
I agree.
Making harpoon guns, going on an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Real like life adventurer over here. I mean, that's a very interesting time period to grow up. You know, Reconstruction era of Japan post World War II.
Yeah, I mean, he's old. He's like a decade older than Miyamoto, but Miyamoto, I mean, was almost the same age, and he did. I mean, I don't know if he built things, but he went on. I mean, everybody knows Miyamoto went on adventures, and that's what helped launch his ideas for Legend of Zelda, and I think even Mario to a degree. So
he believed
he
inherited his
Kyoto.
sense
It's
of
beautiful
craftsmanship from his grandfather, who long ago had written the entire Japanese national anthem on a single grain of rice and presented it to the emperor. In high school, Yokoi joined the judo club, but he quit after 2 weeks when he got his collarbone shattered by a black belt. While he was recovering, he learned ballroom dancing from a neighbor, hoping it'd make him popular with girls. Soon after, he enrolled at Doshisha University in Kyoto to study electrical engineering. At college, he indeed was popular with girls. Too popular, in fact.
Hell yeah.
His dance partner fell in love and wanted to marry him. Yokoi wasn't up for it though, and saw it as a sign he should give up dancing to return to his true love, tinkering.
Pussy magnet. That's what he wants to say here.
Yes. Yeah. So,
ladies,
look at that guy.
Rigo Suave.
Oftentimes, he'd be up well past midnight, whittling away at one thing or another. In the early 60s, he built his own car stereo with a cassette player. It was probably the world's first, he remembers. At the time, cars only had radios. It impressed all his friends, and it wasn't until years later that car tape decks was something you could buy off the lot.
See, and I can't even build a fucking desk properly. I feel like such a failure.
I feel you. I'm there
Every
too.
week he would drive that car a couple hours to the seaside and catch fish with his harpoon guns, to everyone's amazement. There are 2 kinds of people who like making things, the ones who do it for themselves, and the ones who like to show off and surprise others. Ever since I was a kid, I was the type that just loved making other people happy. In 1965, he graduated and went looking for work. Unfortunately, his grades had been embarrassingly low, and he got rejected by every major electronics company.
That's so wild to think about, that his grades were embarrassing low.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he wasn't. A lot of men are just like not into the school thing. I mean, he seems to be more of a physical guy, likes to build and do things his way, basically.
Yeah, I understand that.
And it pays off, obviously.
Yeah, obviously you could tell this guy was a tinkerer.
Yes.
One after another. He didn't want to leave his hometown, so he took a local job at a small company called Nintendo, who mostly made playing cards. My friends asked why someone with a degree in electrical engineering would take a job at a card company, he remembers. But honestly, I had no idea what I'd be doing at Nintendo. He'd soon learned that the only reason he got hired was because of a new law that required a company of Nintendo's size to have an electrical engineer on staff.
So he was a DEI hire, basically.
Oh, well, I mean, not exactly. Well, I mean, they required someone of his, educational background, not necessarily DEI. DEI is more.
I'm making a joke, obviously, but it's like he got
obviously, yeah.
He was just hired because like he was required to by law, and they're like, "We'll take you, I guess."
You know what? I mean, that's not a bad reason. You take whatever advantages you can get.
Exactly. I mean, you basically get a
I didn't find job like I was telling you earlier. I worked in a warehouse after I graduated college. This was the middle of the recession. So once I took a job in my field, engineering, I moved 3 hours away just so I could take that opportunity. So yeah, take whatever advantage you can get.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like they hit the lottery, basically.
Yeah.
So let's continue.
Yokoi, as it turned out, was brought on solely to meet the law's requirements, even though, really, he wasn't needed. He ended up as a maintenance worker tasked with fixing glue machines and stuff like that. Most of his classmates did end up at big electronics firms, and he was embarrassed to run into them. He figured he'd just keep his head down, toil away in his menial job for 40 years, and hold out for retirement. But day to day, there really wasn't much for him to do, so he filled his time using company tools to perfect his harpoon making and kept making toys. One toy was actually something he'd made as a kid, but now improved upon. An extending hand for grabbing things out of arm's reach. One day, Nintendo's president.
That's pretty cool, actually. I almost have the same idea as him. It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna work this job and dick around. That's basically it.
Keep yourself. If you have nothing to do, you might as well do something. So, but yeah, the Ultra Hand. Yep, everybody knows that's what transformed the Nintendo from a card company to a toy company.
President Hiroshi Yamauchi discovered him playing with it on company time and summoned him to his office.
Playing with it.
Mm-hmm. I heard, I heard that he was playing. He brought it to like lunch. They were having lunch or something, and he was messing around with it with coworkers or something. I don't know. Maybe they're more accurate here. I don't know. But yeah, Yamauchi saw him. Yamauchi, took over the company. His great grandfather, I think, started Nintendo. So this was passed down to him, and after a while, like he had ambition. He wanted this to grow bigger than what it was. And I don't know where the source is, but I read that he went to a card show, or he visited one of the largest card manufacturers in the United States. I don't know if it was in Ohio or somewhere. And he realized, okay, this is it. This is all that this industry is good for. And so he started opening he started thinking, okay, maybe we got to look into, reassessing what we can do and expanding, develop or, research and do more research and development. And this was his opportunity. He saw it and he's like, okay, I want you to make this into a marketable product for Christmas. And that was Yokoi's first assignment. So
he was about to get fired, or at least chewed out. But to his surprise, Yamauchi said, "You know what? Let's sell that thing, but not as a toy. Make it a game instead." He had a thick Kansai dialect, by the way, which in English equates to something like a southern accent. The two men would eventually grow into a sort of father-son dynamic, but that wasn't till later.
Yamauchi looks like a mob boss, looks like a Yakuza boss.
He does.
Yamauchi tried branching out to food products, a taxi service, and even love hotels to try and bring in more money, but with little success.
They had a little love tester.
I didn't know about food. That was one that I didn't know about.
I don't think I knew about that either, or I forgot about it.
Nintendo brand canned beans. That'd be funny, actually. I think I'd buy it for the novelty.
Oh yeah, don't eat it.
Stranglehold on the toy market, but Yamauchi did see an opening in the games market. So the stretchy hand was bundled with a rulebook and balls, and became Nintendo's first successful step into the games business. 30 years later, Yokoi looked back at this moment and said, "I realize now, this was the beginning of my life, and in a sense, it may have been the first step in the transformation of Nintendo the card company into the Nintendo you know today."
I wonder how much one of those costs now, like if you could find one.
eBay, look on eBay, probably a lot.
Look, how about you look it up real quick while we got a second here? I'm curious about that.
Ultra and Nintendo eBay. Not too much. 150, 250, 159.
That's not terrible.
Yeah, and these are all, those are brand new. I'm assuming they're real. Kyoto Limited Ultra Hand, it's a reprint. Rare Itemist, Japan, New Japan. Ultra Hand Nintendo toy, 1966 original vintage game. Ultra Hand, very rare. This one's $340.
I might look at Japan when I go, just to see if I could snag one out there, because that'd be cool to have as a little historical piece.
I didn't see this out there, so but then again, I've only been to a few places. Definitely want to go back.
Well, another thing too is like I don't think you would thought about, hey, I'm gonna look for the stretchy hand, you know.
Well, we went to a whole bunch of places, like places that had toys and electronics and all that. So, but it was mainly like figurines and all that. So
yeah,
nothing like this.
Yamauchi named it the Ultra Hand, which went on to sell over 1 million units at $2 a piece.
Oh wow,
that was big money for Nintendo back then, and the profits essentially saved the company. The president set Yokoi free from his boring maintenance job and started a new section of the company, the development department, where Yokoi could tinker full-time. Yamauchi was like, "Alright, college boy, have at it. Think us up some more $1 million ideas." That stressed Yokoi out to no end, though. The Ultra Hand was something he made as a kid, but now he was expected to pump out hit after hit from scratch. So he thought back, once again, to his childhood. Long ago, he had a rich friend with countless toys, but what he loved more than anything was other kids throwing ping pong balls at him so he could whack them with some bamboo. Yokoi couldn't have cared less about baseball, but figured if that rich kid liked it more than any toy in the world, maybe that was an idea worth exploring. So he invented a miniature pitching machine for ping pong balls. It was dubbed the Ultra Machine and sold 2 million units, even more than Ultra Hand. Yokoi saw his toys
cool.
on
I
the
didn't know
assembly
that.
line, rolling down conveyor belts one after another, then loaded onto trucks to deliver all over Japan. It was spectacular, he recalled. That's when I began to feel confident the world would accept my ideas. I was really happy at Nintendo. The company bought everything I needed and paid me a salary to do all the tinkering I would have done anyway. Even on my days off, I couldn't wait to get back to work.
That's not a job then.
Right.
It's not a job by definition.
But like a lot of these things are also like not exactly like revolutionary or like change, like, you know, over the top ideas. Like this little like ping pong machine is, you know, not that like wild or insane. It's so wild to think about that this is something.
It's very simple, you know, very simple automate. It's some very simple, you know, automation, some very simple, you know, actuation, moving parts that just, you know, couple of motions and there you go. You got your product right there.
Yeah, I you know what, like this is the one time I wish I could sit down and talk to like older Japanese people to like ask them about like some of this stuff too, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Go to Japan, there's a lot of elderly.
I know. Well, it's they have a reverse age pyramid there.
Yes.
So we're gonna continue on.
1969, Yokoi's philosophy of making creative use of cheap materials began to form in his mind, which would serve as the basis for the rest of his life's work. It's usually translated as lateral thinking with withered technology, but perhaps a more easily understood translation is thinking sideways with mature technology. Cutting-edge tech is expensive and sometimes breaks down or glitches when it gets to market because it hasn't had years of experience getting used by millions of customers.
Me trying to play a fucking game on PC. Yeah.
But I mean, this explains why Nintendo's always been behind. Like, the Wii, it was built with a lot of the same components as the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of explains why it was like, HD already was a thing by 2006, but Wii was still playing with 480. I think it was 480.
I mean, the first iteration of the 360 did not have from what I remember, it didn't have like an HDMI cable or anything.
That's true. That's true.
So I think it was starting to become like more commonplace because I think my first HD TV was like a Sony a Waga, or was like an early Bravia, and it was like one of those fucking giant CRT models that weighed like fucking 400 or 500 pounds. Oh, I hated moving that so much as like a teenager. We had it like when we moved our first house. It was like we were up on like the middle floor of our apartments, and my stepdad was like, "Oh, gotta be careful," going insane, and I'm just fucking like, "Fuck, dude, stop! It's so heavy." Nowadays, it's like I can lift, my big 65-inch by myself, but back then, 45-inch, that was like, trying to Iron Man competition.
Yeah. I remember lugging those things with like two other guys.
Yeah, they were still component cables too back then, so it was still a little bit before HDMI's.
Yeah, I bought the later 360, the black one, I think back in 2011, and mine still came with a component cable. So my friend told me, "Hey, you can hook up HDMI." And I was playing the first Red Dead Redemption. This was 2010, 2011. No, yeah. It was 2011. And I noticed such a big difference in the picture and in the quality. I was like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah,
so
I think like the first time I saw like high hertz TVs, like it fucked with my eyes for such a long time because I'm like, oh man, I'm not used to like how sharp and like the refresh rates were.
It was like what did you have, like 120? Refresh?
Yeah, something like that. I just remember I had like one of those HD TV LGs.
Yeah, I had the LG as well. Yeah,
that was like the first one I had. It was like the first smart TV, and then I was like, oh, yeah, this is different. It took a while for my eyes to adjust, but yeah, that was like the biggest leap.
Yeah, when I was living in Peoria, Central Illinois, I bought myself a Quatron, a 60-inch Quatron. That was like that everything I watched like on Blu-ray or something looked like it was like filmed. It looked like it was filmed in the studio. It almost looked like a sitcom almost or something. It didn't have that movie. When I was trying to watch a movie, it didn't feel like I was watching a movie, if you know what I mean.
I know what you're talking about. It's something that you would have to re-look at yourself. It's hard to explain. It's like trying to explain color to a blind person. It's like you have to understand.
I think movies were all 30 frames a second, I think, back like older stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's a frame rate. I don't know.
All right, let's continue.
Old technology, on the other hand, is cheap to make and already proven to work. By thinking sideways, Yokoi could come up with new ways of using old tech to make stuff that's inexpensive, reliable, and fun. On that playing field, it's all about competing on who has the best ideas. Thinking sideways went hand in hand with the blue ocean strategy.
That's
things
what
no
one
else is selling, so Nintendo would have the market all for themselves. With all that starting to rattle around in his head, One day, he was using an ammeter, a 100-year-old device for measuring electricity, when he noticed it detected electricity in his own body. Suddenly, he realized it could be used as an excuse for a boy to hold a girl's hand and measure the romantic chemistry between them from 1 to 100. Getting a girl to hold your hand was no easy task back then, so a lot of boys bought one for just that purpose.
What? Wait, what?
Yep.
I don't understand that.
So apparently, there's like they hold like I think it's like an they hold the boy holds an electrode, the girl holds an electrode,
No, I
and then
understand
they hold
that.
hands. Yeah,
but the way that they phrase it, it's like it was hard to hold a girl's hand back in the day. I'm like, wait, what? That's funny. That's funny. Like that's a reference that only like you had to be there to understand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So that just caught me off guard just hearing that. Especially for a ladies' man, you know, like Gunpei was, you know, it's like, come on, man. What do you mean it was hard? You were like crushing it.
Yokoi called it the love tester, and to sweeten the deal, claimed it's more accurate when a boy and a girl kiss. One day, Yamauchi left work and took one with him. Later, Yokoi got a phone call from him saying, "Hey, what's going on? We kissed, but the needle ain't moving." The boys back at Nintendo got a good laugh out of it. In his book, Yokoi says, "I used a love tester myself and held many women's hands.
You dog, you!
Just holding hands wasn't enough for me anymore." Once he'd got all that love testing out of his system, it was around this time Yokoi met the one, got married, and before long, welcomed a son into the world. What's interesting is Yokoi never mentions them in his book.
Really?
You won't find much record of him ever having a family online either, even in Japanese. His wife and son are incredibly private, and out of respect, we were asked not to show their photos in this video. Also, out of respect, and because it's an interesting story in itself, we want to talk about our sources. Yokoi's biography was authored by a guy named Takafumi Makino, who interviewed him for days on end. The book's about half Yokoi's own words, while Makino summarized the rest into a chronological narrative. It was published in June '97, but no one bought it. Everyone knew Yokoi's creations, but no one knew his name. So
that's something that AC told me. Like he's like people, developers, they're not really famous in Japan. They're just they're just people that just other people that work. And whereas here, we all know, everyone knows Miyamoto. Everybody knows Reggie, or whoever else whoever works
Iwata.
in Nintendo. Iwata, may God rest his soul.
Mm-hmm.
Or Sakurai. But in Japan, they're just other working people.
Yeah, like Inafune and Mikami and all these people. You know what? This probably never got a Western translation then, because if no one bought it, then it probably is just stuck in Japan. So AC, if you're listening, this is your homework assignment one day.
If these guys manage to get a translation, there must be a translation out there somewhere.
Maybe. But I know AC says he's been trying to read more books. This would be an interesting one for him to look into. So
do it, AC. Do it.
Do it, coward.
Only a few hundred copies sold. Then the rest got destroyed.
Oh,
After
God.
Yokoi died
a few
months later, suddenly everyone wanted to read it.
Oh,
and the few surviving copies shot up.
Never mind. I take it back. Never mind. I spoke too soon.
So it's one of those phenomena, remember when Michael Jackson died, or when a musician dies, like their sales go through the roof. Well, that's crazy.
Where was this at? This was obviously a U.S. newspaper. He was 56 when he passed away. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was born in 40. Yeah, he was born in 41. So yeah, he was in his 20s in the 60s. So yeah.
Was killed in a traffic accident. Oh.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't know that. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, a lot. I heard there were conspiracy theories that propped up. Like some people think there was some foul play involved or something.
Well, like I said,
Or
him and Patton died the same way, so it's starting to check out.
yeah, I mean, and then what's even sadder was he left Nintendo shortly before this. He left Nintendo shortly before this. One of the last things he worked on was a failure. And for the longest time, I was under the assumption that he was released from Nintendo because of the failure of a certain Virtual Boy that I've never played, or I don't think anyone ever played. No one I know ever played.
All right, we're gonna go back here.
Dollars. Eventually, Nintendo Dream Magazine's Europe correspondent Florent Gorge managed to get his hands on one. With Makino's permission, and after meeting with Yokoi's family, Gorge translated the book into French with extra chapters and
Okay,
photos.
never mind.
Makino saw all the improvements and was inspired to write a new biography in 2010, with more from his Yokoi interviews that weren't included in the original book.
So I take it back, AC. This is your homework again. You might be able to find it now, because there we go, roller coaster riding. But yeah, that's cool. Maybe there's definitely got to be an English copy probably out there then. Maybe
There has to be. I think there is.
There's got to be, because this would be interesting to learn about.
Over the next decade, Gorge went on to conduct more interviews with surviving Nintendo staff to write 4 volumes on Nintendo's entire history, which of course include a lot of stories about Yokoi.
Did you ever read those?
I don't think so. I don't recognize these.
Well, these would be probably interesting to learn about then, because it's got like the history of Nintendo.
I'm gonna write this down. I'm gonna see if I can. Maybe I could snag a copy for myself. History of Nintendo.
Yeah.
By Florent Gorges. Florent Gorges. Let's see. I love the covers. Covers look great.
Yeah, these look awesome actually.
Most of the video you're watching now was compiled from all Makino and Gorge's books, and we want to express our utmost respect for their work. Without them, most of the world wouldn't know much about Yokoi beyond a list of his inventions. Gorge was personally involved in the making of this video as well, and we can't recommend his books enough. They're the definitive tellings of Nintendo history. If you like reading, you'll love them. Okay, now back to the story.
But enough shilling.
Throughout the 1970s, Yokoi had a few misses, but a lot more successes in what's now considered his second golden age. He'd had a fascination with firearms since childhood, so his next inventions were a series of light gun games. The way they worked was each gun had a light inside with a guillotine shutter tied to the trigger.
No way!
That's funny.
I did not know that, but I knew about the light gun. But I didn't know that did that. Wow, that's awesome.
That's so cool. I want this. I want this right now. Custom Lion. I'm gonna look.
All right, Custom Lion.
I want this.
That's probably Custom Lion. Let's see. Is there a Custom Lion? Custom Lion Nintendo eBay. Before Nintendo, $300 before Nintendo was sold. Oh, okay, never mind.
I'm checking that. Double checking something here.
I clicked on a link, but it said sold.
You can buy one right now. It's just missing its tail for $170.
170.
Yeah, there's only one on eBay right now though. That's not terrible. I want one of these.
Yeah, tail only broken. So it's just the lion, not the gun.
It comes with the lion and the gun. It looks like.
Oh, okay.
This looks cool. This would be fun.
It does.
I bring this over to my father-in-law's house. Be like, here you go. This is more your speed of games, right?
Kits were fitted with cheap solar cells that acted as light detectors.
It gets back up too.
Yamauchi asked if there was a way they could design a competition around them, and bought Yokoi an actual rifle to brainstorm with. Eventually, he came up with a game based on clay shooting, a sport
Oh, yeah,
where
clay
you
shooting.
shoot what
Yep.
are essentially frisbees that fly in all directions. Bowling had become a fad in Japan, and at the height of its popularity, a bowling alley could be found on practically every street corner.
Are you good at bowling?
I mean, I haven't bowled in a long time, so probably not. I mean, I'll get a strike once in a blue moon.
Yeah, I haven't been bowling in forever. I want to go back.
But by 1973, the fad was waning, and all those bowling alleys were going out of business. So,
Oof.
Yokoi sought to take advantage of the situation and establish laser clay as more than a game and turn it into a proper sport. Empty bowling alleys were converted into laser clay centers.
Really?
And
Wow,
everyone
really?
loved it. Yokoi got so many pats on the back for his genius idea, he practically needed a chiropractor. But then a recession hit, just as things were getting going, and
Aw.
a huge earthquake struck Nintendo's headquarters. As a result, they were never able to fully realize their goals for laser clay and ended up losing a fortune on the venture. Unbeknownst to them at the time, this would mark the start of a 7-year dark age for Nintendo's finances.
That's so weird to think about. I never knew this at all. This is so
Right.
wild to hear.
Yeah. What year? What year are we at
70s?
now?
73, I think he said.
Okay.
But yeah, that's wild to think about right there.
Yeah, just not even. It's not even something that was directly. No one was responsible. It was just an act of God that caused the earthquake that caused this.
Yeah. I wonder if you could bring this back nowadays in Japan. I wonder if you could get like a small thing like this.
I think so.
Maybe you
I think
could.
so.
To try and save the company, Yokoi spent the next few years trying his luck in the arcade business. His first game was Wild Gunman. Using a pair of film projectors, it showed live-action cowboys you've got to shoot before they shoot you. There's a sensor in the
Interesting.
holster that won't let you draw too early. Then, when the light flashes, if you're quick, you'll kill him, but too slow, and you lose. Arcade players were blown away, because keep in mind, this was back when you were used to more primitive games, like Pong and old-fashioned pinball tables. Yokoi also made a version of Wild Gunman called Fascination, where you shoot the knots off of a Swedish model's clothes to make them fall to the floor, so she's
What?
in nothing but her undies.
Wait,
Everyone-
what?
Wow.
What?
Wow! Wow! Well,
Oh god, that's hilarious. I want to find this now. We're bringing this to America. Jesus Christ.
same.
I gotta bring that to the Galloping Ghost. Come on, let's go.
It's
That's,
arcade.
that's fucking hilarious. Japan, go to Japan. Hello, JM. How you doing, buddy?
Everyone loved these ideas too, but Nintendo was deep in debt and in such dire financial straits that they only managed to produce 100 Wild Gunmen, and it seems only 1 or 2 Fascinations. They made a little money, but not nearly enough to make back all they'd lost on laser clay. Yokoi made a few more shooter cabinets, but after failing to find fortune in the arcade, he turned his guns on people's homes, starting with Duck Hunt in 1976.
Oh,
Using
okay.
a series of lights, mirrors, and light detectors, it projected ducks on a living room wall. Players would shoot and watch them tumble down to the floor. How it worked is pretty ingenious and hard to explain, but simply put,
I didn't know
it was
this.
another example of sideways thinking with old technology, and the whole system sold for about $35 to considerable success.
I didn't know about this either.
So it didn't start out as an NES game
Yeah, no.
or arcade. Well, yeah. Wow. That's
This is cool.
Yeah, this is really cool.
All the stuff I'd like to just add to my like little history museum over here. That I'm gonna do.
How big is that museum now?
It's getting to the point where my wife is Getting mad.
But it still wasn't enough. Nintendo was drowning in debt, and Yokoi was desperate to...
Ando says over here, so Duck Hunt on the NES was a port? Well, it looks like it. Or
Looks like it.
a remake, I guess you could say.
Yeah, remake before it was a thing.
Yeah. Learning a lot today, that's for sure.
Save it from bankruptcy. So, he kept on inventing, like walkie-talkies that communicate with light, an RC race car that sold for 1/10 the price because it only turned left, a remote-controlled vacuum cleaner, and he even resorted to jumping on the Rubik's Cube craze with a puzzle game called The 10 Billion. Funnily enough, he didn't even know how to solve the 10 billion. In his book, he admits some random customer had to teach him the solution. Then Yokoi later pretended he figured it out himself. He was pretty embarrassed about it, but he was doing everything he could to...
That's a real man right there. That's a real businessman. Fuck it. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, look at that. That's a photo. I want this to be my new profile picture. Just this right here. Go put a Carl face on you.
Saved Nintendo, and although most of his inventions were profitable, it still wasn't enough. Then, one day in 1979, he was sitting on a train and saw a businessman so bored out of his mind that he had resorted to playing with a calculator. Yokoi thought, what if I made a little game a guy like him could play to kill time?
That's funny. He was probably typing boobs. His calculator.
But the thought was soon forgotten. He didn't think it was a very good idea. And besides, he had other ideas he figured were better. Fate took a turn, though, because soon after that, Milton Bradley released the Microvision, the world's first portable game machine with interchangeable cartridges.
Really?
As described in one of Gorge's books, Yokoi and another Nintendo employee got their hands on one and loved it. But
I didn't know about this either.
Gigantic, and the 16 by 16 resolution made all its games look the same. After some brainstorming, they realized they could make something like a Microvision, but with more readable graphics if they used a literal calculator screen, and the machine could be smaller if it only had one game. As they were mulling that over, Yamauchi's driver got sick and didn't come to work one day. The president's Cadillac had its steering wheel on the left side, and the only other person in the company who could drive it was Yokoi. A big meeting was coming up, so Yamauchi said, "Sorry, I know it's not your job, but I need you to be my driver today."
That's so funny.
Wow, that is crazy.
That's so funny.
I need you to be my drive. I need you. I need you, my R&D guy, my developer guy. I need you to drive me.
I have a car that I bought that I can't drive. That's such rich person shit right there.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So this is how the Game & Watch, I guess, is going to be invented then, huh? It's just happened to be the driver of the car and had a whole time to sales pitch it, huh?
Yep.
On the way, Yokoi told him his idea. Then, when they got to the meeting, Yamauchi just happened to sit next to the president of the world's biggest calculator manufacturer, Sharp Corporation, and Yamauchi mentioned the idea to him.
Oh,
A week later, someone from Sharp showed up at Nintendo and said, "You know what? Let's do it." Most of Nintendo's sales and marketing staff opposed the project, but Yamauchi gave the thumbs up, and that was all that mattered. So Yokoi got to work and thought, a businessman doesn't want to be seen playing games. It's embarrassing. On the train, it's customary to sit with your hands folded, so we'll make the game wide rather than tall, and small enough to hide in a pair of folded hands. Holding it like that, only the thumbs would be used.
Even in video game heaven, Japanese people will still call you a fucking nerd.
Yeah.
Usable, so we'll make it playable with just thumbs. And it should have a clock too, since businessmen need to know the time. Nintendo had played around a little with arcade and video games, But this next invention, the Game & Watch, was the beginning of the Nintendo we know today. Yokoi originally thought he'd only make one game, but Yamauchi told him, might as well do a few. To everyone's surprise, they sold millions around the world and finally broke Nintendo out of its 7-year funk. The year before Game & Watch, the company had $75 million in revenue. The year after, it quadrupled to $300 million. And
holy crap. Wow.
That's an insane amount for 1979 money too, by the way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. God dang, dude.
the profits allowed Nintendo
Heyo.
to pay off every cent of its past debts. Their financial dark age had come to an end, and the beginning of
He's ruined
third
it.
golden age had begun. Every now and then, Yamauchi would be like, "Okay, kid, time for you to come up with some more
It just
game
takes one
ideas."
tooth.
To which Yokoi was thinking, you know,
Ooh,
it's
color.
really not that easy.
Yeah,
for the
color.
guy who's got to make all those ideas.
Was this like the reprint of it when they
Ah,
did the re-release not too long ago?
possibly. I don't know.
Or is this
That looks like the same octopus or squid design from Sunshine, Mario Sunshine, I think.
could be? I think this is like the final smash for Game & Watch as well.
Yeah.
And then Ando says, if you guys haven't played them yet, the Game & Watch Mario games on Game Boy and Game Boy Advance are great. Have you played those?
Game & Watch? No.
On the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance?
No. I haven't played those.
Yeah, and I've never heard of them either, so I'll have to look into those, Ando.
But of course, kept those thoughts to himself. Yokoi would later say in his biography, if the driver wasn't sick that day, he would have forgotten about the idea and Game & Watch never would have happened. And if Yamauchi hadn't sat next to Sharp's president at the meeting, it wouldn't have happened either. Perhaps it was
Popeye,
fate.
Disney,
Of the 60
Disney.
Game & Watches Nintendo released over the next few years, about 50 were games Yokoi thought up himself. At least the broad strokes, though often the finer details were worked out by his staff.
Jumping on
Especially
turtles.
the programming.
Looks familiar.
Yokoi was more of an ideas guy and organizer of other people's talents, and didn't have the technical know-how to do his own coding. Now's a good time to mention that although the development department started as basically just Yokoi, it had slowly grown over time and now employed a lot more. Mostly younger guys, who Yokoi was keen to break out of their shells and unlock their full potential. When he started...
He's like me, for real, then ideas guy.
Yep.
There was no one there to poo-poo his wild ideas, and he wanted the new guys to feel that same sense of freedom. Oftentimes in meetings, Yokoi would speak up and say something silly to encourage his staff to do the same. When they thought up a new idea together, half the time he'd put their names on the patent instead of his own. That boosted their confidence and made them better contributors to the team. He did his best to tear down all hierarchical structures as best he could, and make it known that ideas from general managers, section managers, and ordinary employees were equally worth considering.
You know, a real leader, as they would say.
Yeah.
Everyone
I mean, you want to
encourage
people to. You want to be encouraging. You want to encourage people to, to grow and to develop further.
This guy doesn't look real. I'm just going to point that out.
Looks like a young Saul Goodman, almost.
It looks like he's wearing a mask. It's just everyone else looks normal, and then this guy over here looks like he's just melting.
By organizing their pursuits all together, he was able to consistently generate millions upon millions.
Is that
of
Danky
dollars.
Kang?
People called his management style
Junior.
Yokoism. There was undoubtedly a lot of what today we'd call crunch. But despite that, most everyone was having fun and looked forward to work every day. Secretly though, as the operation
Popeye was a big
grew
influence
and
on
grew,
Mario.
Yokoi was getting stressed under the mounting pressure. He also butted heads with other higher-ups, which he attributed to office politics he was able to avoid the worst of, since he wasn't driven by money or fame. Despite those difficulties, he did his best
Oh,
to
kittens.
hide them from the lower level workers. Water your seeds, give them sunshine, and they'll grow into fruits. That was Yokoi's thinking. In 1977, one of Nintendo's new hires was a young Shigeru Miyamoto. For the first few years, he was assigned.
I think I've ever seen this
unmemorable
picture.
tasks like package design.
I've never seen
But got his chance
that
to
young of a
shine
picture of
in
him.
81 after a Nintendo.
Kind of looks like Asian Jim Morrison there.
He does. He does. I mean, he was, if I remember correctly, he was hired in 77, same year Star Wars came out. So
Mojo Rising.
Arcade game called Radar Scope failed to sell. At this point, the development department was split into two halves. R&D 1 was still Yokoi's, while R&D 2 was under Masayuki Umura, who'd come over from Sharp back when Nintendo was buying their solar sensors to make light guns. Radar
Deer in
Scope was
headlight
made
photo.
by R&D 2, but when it flopped, R&D
pretty funny.
1 was tasked with salvaging it in any way they could. The stakes were high, as the newly formed Nintendo of America had bet big on Radar Scope and was now sitting on thousands of unsold arcade cabinets.
Oh,
As
wow.
a result, they were essentially broke and close to going bankrupt. So together, Yokoi and Miyamoto set out to design a new game that could run on the same cabinets. Initially, they based it on a Popeye cartoon where Olive sleepwalks through a construction site. The rights didn't come through though, so the characters were changed to a giant gorilla, a gorgeous babe, and an old man.
I knew this was
Yokoi
based
said
directly
to give
on
the
a
old man
particular Popeye
overalls,
cartoon.
since It's a
I
construction
didn't know that
site,
either.
And Miyamoto threw a mustache on him. Miyamoto suggested barrels roll around, which the old man could dodge by going up.
So Mario is actually Popeye the Sailor Man.
pretty much, yeah.
That's what I'm learning
And-
today. I did not know that.
Pauline is Olive Oil and Donkey Kong is
Brutus?
Bluto.
And Bluto, yeah.
Bluto.
Oh, that is fucking hilarious. That is blowing my
Yep.
mind a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
So now we need to have someone commission Popeye art, but he's in Mario clothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And down
Not- not-
ladders. In practice, though, it was frustrating.
Wow.
So Yokoi said a button should let you jump.
Heck, even
over
Mario had a
barrels.
sailor cap. I didn't think
Thus,
about that.
The world's first platformer
Damn it!
was born.
How did I not think of that?
The old
Oh my
man
god, it really is Popeye now that I
It is.
can't see it.
It's got the W.C. Fields red drunk nose. Yeah, there
Oh
you
my
go.
goodness.
Yep. I never realized that.
Oh, that's hilarious. Hey there,
I know.
Pop Culture, and hey there, Frank. How you guys doing there? Thank you for stopping by.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, did you guys know that Mario is Popeye? Because we just learned that.
Pop culture probably does.
He might.
I think he does.
He probably was the original inspiration for Popeye, but that's what we know.
Hey, he was actually alive in the 70s, so what can I say? He's the boomer of all of us.
Well, he knew who Private Snafu was, so I give him credit for that.
I don't even know what that is.
It's an old cartoon. I think it was Mel Blanc. And what it was
Mel-
is it was war propaganda. They would tell soldiers like in little cartoons not to go yapping to women, basically, and stuff like that.
In the Looney Tunes voice. Wow. Okay.
and Miyamoto designed together eventually came to be known as Mario, while the game itself was named Donkey Kong after the
Kong.
gorilla. It was a collaborative effort, but by analyzing Donkey Kong...
You know they got
you can
sued
best
by
understand
Universal
Yokoi's
for the
philosophy
use of the
game
word
design.
Kong. Because
I-
of King Kong.
I did not know that, but that's also funny to think that Nintendo
Yeah.
got sued for IP infringement.
Yep.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Now they sue all the time, you know.
Yeah, like that grocery store, like Super Mario's in like what, the Dominican or something like that.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, they're like, we're suing this
Wow.
random Dominican guy for no reason.
His name is Mario. That's a common name.
I know, but it's funny. It's like funny to think about that. I think they're just sometimes they're just bored, so they look for people to sue. That's my theory.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Sometimes they're justified, and then sometimes I'm like, I think their lawyers are bored and they need to justify their expense.
Lawyers need to eat too.
Yeah.
Design. Simply put, the graphics should wordlessly tell the player everything they need to know. Maybe that sounds obvious nowadays, but a lot of 80s games demanded you consult outside material, like a manual, to learn its story, how to win, or even perform the most basic.
Yeah, back in the golden days, when people talk about unfinished games, here you go. This is an unfinished game. Have fun. You didn't get the whole story back in the day. You had to go to the manual to understand what you were doing.
I mean that was extra. That was additional work for some people. That's how what was his name? Kozumi got his start.
Yeah.
Doing coming up with lore for a game that wasn't really. It wasn't really. I mean, there was some lore in the game. Like I'm thinking Link to the Past right now, but a lot of the lore was you had to read it in the instructions.
Yeah, and then Ando says, wasn't Kirby called Kirby because he was named after the lawyer that defeated them in the Universal Kong lawsuit?
Yeah, and what's even funny is Nintendo of America's landlord was a guy named Mario Segale. And so that's where people believe that's where they got the name Mario from.
Yeah, I think I knew the Kirby thing, but it's more like it was there, because I think I watched a documentary about that one time or another.
Yeah, the Kirby one I think is true. I've heard that one too.
Yeah. But I'm not like the biggest Nintendo fanboy here, so I'm not too up on the Nintendo lore like some people.
Functions. In Donkey Kong, you instantly know who the villain is, because it's a monstrous gorilla that grabs a pretty girl.
That's not true, it's the woman. Women are always the problem.
And drags her kicking and screaming to the top of the screen. Then you see a little man who
Pauline's been making a comeback lately.
Has to climb up to rescue.
Yeah, I want to say I cannot wait for next month. I am so hyped to play that Donkey Kong game. It looks good.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, did you play Mario Odyssey by any chance? I was surprised.
Yeah.
I was surprised they made her look the way she did, but I guess they wanted to differentiate her look from like Peach or Princess Toadstool because you see like she has like I think she's blonde. Yeah, I think she's a blonde in this in her sprite right there.
Like redhead a little bit.
Maybe
like brunette, looking more like a little brunette.
They gave her black hair in the in Odyssey, so I guess to make her look different from Daisy and Princess and Peach, basically.
Rescue the damsel in distress. The construction girders, ladders, and barrels tell you everything you need to know along the way. Simple, fun, and easy to understand. That was the Yokoi way, and Miyamoto adopted it as his own in the years to come. Donkey Kong went on to become a huge success, not only selling thousands of old radar scope cabinets, but tens of thousands more, making Nintendo hundreds of millions of dollars, and allowing Nintendo of America to buy 27 acres of land to expand their operations. It's not a stretch to say NOA's what it is today thanks largely to this one success. The following year, Yokoi's team converted Donkey Kong into a Game & Watch. By now, they were making them with 2 screens, similar to what eventually became Nintendo DS. The arcade game used a joystick, but that wouldn't work on a handheld. So, after some tinkering and throwing out a boob-shaped alternative, Yokoi invented the modern D-pad, mostly because it was cheap, and allowed 4-direction control with a single piece of plastic. It also had the added benefit that players could feel the direction they were pushing without having to look down. Again, to someone who wasn't alive back then, D-pads might seem inevitable and obvious. Of course that should be the standard. But back in '82, video game controllers...
Yeah, what the fuck were these two on the bottom here? Alright, this one makes sense.
This is before me. I can't really
But what the fuck are these? Pop, if you're still around here, like, you gotta explain. What is this? What was the idea of the remote control and the knob here? Come on.
What's with the numbers? Is it just another calculator?
I have no idea. I know about these because of the nerd, but I don't know what they were because it's been so long. Like I think this one was like, it's like if I recall correctly, this was like for Pong, something like
Okay.
that. I think it was like something like that. And this,
What do you turn a knob and that's what causes the the thing to go up and down basically?
it was
Turn
like
it one way, turn it the other.
it was like some weird games. I think there was like a game called Haunted House, and you put it on the screen, and like you had to move like a little ball around. Like I think this one was like for a little ball, and like you could constantly cheat by hitting the reset button and just like fuck it up. So if you're like you and a buddy were like playing a game with this, like you just keep resetting the ball.
Interesting.
On one over here, Ando says one on the left feels like slapping a dial on a remote might have been a Pong machine. So I forget what the one that one exactly is. And Pop Culture says over here, yeah, I've seen that before, but that there was no idea on how to make a proper controller. Yeah, no.
Looked like this. At the time, D-pads, platforming, and so many other Yokoi ideas actually weren't obvious. And you can't argue with the results. Donkey Kong sold 8 million units, making it the most popular Game & Watch of all time. And D-pads have been on practically every controller and handheld since, though a lot of them use a cross in a circle to avoid stepping on Yokoi's patent. Not long after, Yokoi asked Miyamoto to make another arcade game based on...
So basically, the only D-pad that's real are Nintendo ones. There we go.
Sounds about right.
Learn something today.
On a turtle he happened to see in an anime, which led to the two of them making the first Mario Brothers. Miyamoto later became world famous for Mario. Yokoi's staff asked why he didn't publicly attach himself to get some fame too. He told them, doesn't matter. If people like the games, I'm satisfied. And when it comes to who made it, it's fine if only the people in the know know. That was a running theme throughout his career. He seldom did interviews, especially with Western press, because he wanted his work to speak for itself. And he didn't mind sharing the limelight and letting his subordinates rack up patents.
That's insane to think about a little bit. I mean, that's very selfless, but like it really shows like
very humble. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm loving this guy already.
Old school mentality there. It's not about it's not being like the old.
It's not about him.
Yeah, you don't want.
He wants. It's like they said earlier in the video. He wants. There's two types of people. There's ones that just do things for themselves, and there's ones that get off on making other people happy. He is the latter.
Yeah,
and I totally get that. I mean, I'm kind of the same. I'm kind of the same way when I love to do stuff for people, and just for nothing, just to build a good relationship, to have the effort speak for itself.
Well, you got a spare like a couple mil then, bro, just to help me out.
I didn't hear you. Did you say something?
Exactly.
Clout and credit. He thought his team would be happier and more productive if they didn't feel like anonymous cogs in his machine. In the midst of all these successes, rival companies started swooping in and trying to poach Yokoi with the promise of more money. He always turned them down though. There was a small restaurant he liked on his way home from work because no one knew who he was and he could just eat and be ordinary. After a while, he noticed another guy who was always there too, and they gradually became drinking buddies. Yokoi never talked about anything personal, like his name or where he worked. But after a year of drinking with the guy, Yokoi felt comfortable enough to open up a bit and just mentioned he worked in development. The other guy looked at him and said, yeah, I know. You're Mr. Yokoi of Nintendo, and I've been waiting for you here a long time. It turned out he'd been an undercover plant all along, just trying to poach him.
Oh, wow.
Truth was, though, Yokoi felt indebted to Nintendo for giving him everything he ever wanted. On a more personal level, though, Him and Yamauchi had grown to feel like father and son. They were incredibly close, and even when they argued, it was more like parent and child than boss and employee. Whenever Yokoi finished a new invention, it was always Yamauchi he ran to first to show it off. When they made Yamauchi light up, Yokoi lit up too. The old man knew he wasn't going to be around forever, and had decided he wanted Yokoi to take over as president when he retired. Over the years, he tried so hard to convince him to take the job, but Yokoi simply didn't want it. More than anything.
That's so wild to think about, that he could have had like everything under his control, and he's like, nah.
Yeah.
I get it though. Like on a smaller scale, I fucking hated being middle management. So I can only imagine what it'd be like to be fucking the top dog, and just how much more stress it was. And they did.
And he wouldn't be doing what he wanted to do. He wouldn't. He'd be dealing with more bullshit. Mm-hmm. He'd be dealing more politicking and more the things that he probably wouldn't want to do. And that's probably why he kept declining. Because it's like they said earlier in the video. He was happy with his work, and he was getting paid enough to live comfortably, and that's pretty much all he wants. He doesn't want. What more is he going to want?
Well, on top of that too, it's just
if you're happy, stay. If you're happy,
Well, he also said
he was change that.
Well, he also said he was already super stressed enough as it is.
Yeah,
so I honestly think he's like, I don't fucking want to deal with that shit. That's really what it was, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably.
He's already a very reserved guy and everything else, and it seems like it's starting to make sense why he would not be thrilled to be like, yeah, I want to be the top guy.
Yeah.
He just liked to tinker and invent stuff, and wasn't interested in running a huge company or all the money that came with it. Yokoi had too much management on his plate already, just with R&D 1, and if he'd had his druthers, he would have been perfectly happy alone with his tools. In 1983, Nintendo took all the money they'd made on Game & Watch and used it to make their first home console, the Famicom, which Yamauchi wanted to sell as cheap as possible. The task was assigned to R&D 2, but they had trouble along the way, especially with keeping down costs. So R&D 1 eventually had to come in and help them out. Yokoi insisted on an eject button, another industry first.
Oh,
and
wow.
of course,
really?
the
I didn't know that.
featured his now iconic D-pad. The Famicom turned out to be a big hit, with Donkey Kong as one of its launch titles. And some other Yokoi games got converted as well, like Wild Gunman and Duck Hunt, under Yokoi's producership.
But not Fascination, cowards.
Lots of original games were made too, including Metroid, Ice Climber, Kid Icarus, Famicom Wars, Famicom Detective Club, Wrecking Crew, and more.
Now, that's another one that I actually started playing recently because they remade them. Famicom Detective Club. Have you played those games?
No, I haven't.
They're visual novels.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually played about a little bit of the first one. And I was enjoying it. I need to get back to it. But
visual novel, so is it like a point and click type of deal?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, all right.
For the most part, though, he wasn't intimately involved in development. He oversaw projects and kept the ship on course, while small teams were mostly given the freedom to make what they wanted.
Wrecking Crew.
Personally,
never played it.
Yokoi never liked the
I think that's supposed to be Mario.
Confined to the inside of a TV screen. So he made the Famicom Light Gun and Rob the Robot to bring games out into the real world. Famicom soon became the best-selling console in Japan. And with his insatiable appetite, Yamauchi set his sights on the world's largest economy, the United States.
Hell yeah.
Unfortunately, America had had a huge gaming crash in 1983 thanks to an oversaturation of too many consoles with a flood of crappy games.
Of course.
In short, the prevailing opinion was that video games suck now. The home console market had shrunk.
I want to buy a copy of E.T. and just frame it. Like, I don't even want to play it and never experience it. I just want to frame it, put it on my like wall, and when people go like, "What's that?" I'm like, "The shittiest video game that was ever made."
Ever made, yeah.
It's
The game that nearly destroyed the industry.
yeah. I would have to like put it down with like a couple, because that would be like one of them, and the other one would find a complete in-box copy of Superman 64.
Oh yeah,
It's like
Superman.
this is
Yeah.
the first tower, and this is the second tower right here.
Yeah.
Oh god, did you ever play Superman 64?
No, my brother rented it, and he tried to play it, and I was watching him play it, and my brother's like, "This game sucks. You're just flying through like rings, and yeah, that's all I saw."
Yeah, no, I was also one of those like terrible rental casualties as well, because I remember we got it from Family, not Family Video. What was it called? It was something video. I think it might have been like Island Lake Video or something like that. It was like a local chain.
Okay, yeah, for me, the place was called Regency, but then it was bought out by someone else, and it became Line Video, in right over by where Cumberland is, Cumberland and Harlem. So right, like when you get off of Cumberland from the expressway from the 90, you go a little bit south. It used to be there right by this big Ukrainian Catholic church. And yeah, and that I remember I used to go there. We used to go there, and I used to be like, please God. I would pray before we get there. We please God, let this game be in, or please let the Nintendo 64 be in, because there were days, there were weekends. We would go on the Saturday. There would be weekends where it would be out. Someone else would have it rented, and I'd be shit out of luck.
Yeah,
So I used to pray for that, So yeah, it was fun. It was fun memories. I mean, I miss doing that. I miss doing that. So.
and we got a couple people in the chat, JM and Pop, saying, "Yeah, the game was ass." They played ET. I almost said AT&T like an idiot for some reason.
Well, AT&T. What can I say? But yeah, this was before my time. I was born in '84. The Crash was in '83, and I think ET came out in '82. I think the game came out. I think the game also came out in '83. So I don't know. Before me, I never played it. I heard about it through YouTube, Angry Video Game Nerd, and yeah, and all the horror stories from all the boomers.
It's a good one though. Pop culture. Hit me up in the DMs after the show. I want to have you on for one of these episodes. I think I got a good one for you.
97% as Americans moved to grass-touching and personal computers. Nintendo's whole shtick in Japan was being inexpensive, but that wasn't gonna fly stateside. If Americans already decided they didn't want to buy crap, why would they suddenly want to buy cheap crap? So Nintendo took a different approach, and marketed the Famicom together with the light gun and Rob the Robot, not as a video game console, but as an entertainment system. Yokoi explains, quote,
"You know what?
It's called I didn't know that.
Yeah,
son of a bitch.
I was just about to say that. It's like, okay, so now that actually makes sense, because it was always called Nintendo Entertainment System, and I never thought too deeply about it until just now.
I just thought it was just like, hey, we want to market here in the West. Let's come up with a cooler name. Let's come up with a cooler name than that. So then Famicom. So yeah.
So the Xbox One should have just called itself the Xbox Entertainment System.
I thought it was a VCR.
Yeah. That's basically what Microsoft did with their Xbox One. They tried to advertise it as something else.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, Nintendo came up with it first. So suck it, Microsoft.
As the number of gamers increased, regular games eventually started selling too. By then, light guns and robots had fulfilled their purpose as the initial spark, and were no longer needed. Decades later, game historians would call Rob the Trojan Horse.
So yeah, right over here, Pop Culture says over here, they wanted the NES to look like a VCR with the front-loading game, so people would think of it as a video. So people wouldn't think of it as a video game system.
Oh,
you know what? That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. It doesn't have the eject thing like the Famicom does. So all you gotta do is you put it in, you put it in all the way, and then you push down,
Yeah.
and close the flap, and that's it.
Yeah,
Then you turn on the game, and it doesn't work. Yeah, until you try it 15 more times, blowing into the cartridge, and then jerking it around so that it works.
Yeah, my brother is 54, so like he had one of these, but I never was like the biggest player of that. I have no attachment to the system. Like a lot of people, for me, it's the N64 and PS1 were my consoles.
Oh, okay.
Force that got Nintendo into American homes. It's easy to forget, but the NES might have never took off if it hadn't been for the robot. Before long,
I had no idea.
NES had
I never had one.
ended the American video game crash, made gaming cool again, and ushered in a Japanese dominance that's continued to this day. It wasn't all Yokoi's doing.
Now you're playing with power, yeah.
Nomura, Takeda, Imanishi, and of course Miyamoto and his new Super Mario Bros. Played a big part too. This is Yokoi's life story though, so I hope you'll forgive us for focusing more on him and not so much on the hundreds of other Nintendo employees there as well. We've done our best to shine a light on a lot of them in past videos.
I've used this footage.
We'll continue doing so in the future. But anyway, after a while, the Famicom and NES peaked, and the Game & Watch boom had run its course. So Yokoi set his sights on his next big project.
Before we continue on here, I need to change up my background again for like that image that goes back on there. I need to sit down one day with my wife or find someone who could do it for me, but just take a bunch of clips of like video game startup trailers, like for the Xbox, PS2, and stuff like that, and have it as a constant running loop in the background.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I have to learn how to do that too.
It's not that hard to do. My wife can do it. It's just that I always forget to have her do it, or I have to coax her into doing it because she is also one of those like, I don't want to do it. Like my two favorite things my wife likes to do to me. One is I ask her to do something and then she gets mad about it, which is fair because I do the same, like every person. And number two, ask me a question after I took a giant bite of food. That's her favorite go-to thing.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's one of her favorite hobbies to do. We're eating dinner, and then I take a giant bite of food, and then she's like, "So, how was your day?" or something. I'm like, I know, love you too, babe. Let's get back to it.
Game Boy. It would be the high point of his career, but the low point of his life. According to legend, Yokoi basically invented it all by himself. For some viewers, that might be the only thing they know about him. The legend's not entirely true though. If any one man should be credited as the inventor, it's actually his R&D1 deputy, Satoru Okada. Yokoi originally wanted the Game Boy to be more like Game & Watch, while Okada envisioned it more like Famicom, and the two argued bitterly till Yokoi gave in.
Oh,
That's
no kidding.
why Okada's name's on the Game Boy patent, and his isn't. That said, Yokoi was still incredibly important in its development and eventual success. One of the biggest hurdles in making a portable Famicom was the public's perception that a small handheld ought to be cheaper than a big home console.
Now, did you ever have a Game Boy?
Oh yeah, I remember. I think I was 6 or 7. I think I was 6. My dad came home. One day. He was like, "Hey, Brian, come on out." And I'd come out of my room. He'd be walking through the door, and he's like, "Guess what I got?" He'd have his hand behind his back like this. And he'd be like, "Voila!" I'm like, and then he had that Game Boy, that Game Boy box that they just showed, and he had Super Mario Land in the other hand. I was like, so So I got the Game Boy, and the problem is we always ran out of battery, so I didn't play it nearly as much as I would have liked, and so I ended up more focused on consoles than handheld. So my brother ended up like taking the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance and taking terrible care of them to the point where they were always on the floor and damaged and all that. So, but yeah, Mario. Yeah, I played Mario Land. Like it was only that game was only like 11 levels. And that was it. And just last week I played Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. I beat it, 100%.
Yeah, I think you posted it in the Discord. If I recall.
I did, and that's how Wario got introduced. He was Mario's evil doppelganger brother. I don't know.
Let's continue on here.
Even though, as Yokoi saw it, it basically was a home console with the addition of its own screen. If anything, it should be more expensive, but consumers didn't see it that way. So Yokoi's team cut costs and removed every feature they could. That was
first heard of Metroid was seeing a commercial for this particular game.
Yeah,
this Metroid 2. I didn't know about the first Metroid. I might have seen the box around, but I never really paid a whole lot of attention to it until I saw a commercial for this one.
Wave oven. An engineer designing a microwave might think adding an extra feature will only add $1 to the total cost, so they'll toss it on. Some other feature only adds 50 cents, so he includes that too, and so on. That's how the world ended up full of microwaves with dozens of buttons no one uses, don't know how to use, and have no interest in figuring out. And ultimately, they cost more than they need to, when the customer would be better served with something cheap and simple that just gets the job done.
I hate microwaves sometimes that are just overly complicated.
Yeah, I know how it is too. I prefer something cheap and convenient, but that seems to be like almost everybody.
That's just I'm not using this to like cook a full course meal here. It's just to reheat some food.
Yeah.
That's basically how they managed to make a portable Famicom that could sell even cheaper than the console. A D-pad, 2 buttons, and a monochrome screen. It was so simple and cheap though, that hardly anyone at Nintendo thought people would actually buy it. The screen was especially controversial. Why wasn't it color? Even Okada wanted color. But Yokoi insisted that not only would a color screen make it cost more, but you wouldn't be able to see it in sunlight. And
yeah,
that's a good point.
Can't really argue that point, especially because my Game Boy Color was also like that, you know?
Yep.
The batteries had run dry 10 times faster. What good's a handheld if you can't go outside and have to buy new batteries every couple hours? Some other departments resorted
It falls under his design philosophy, you know. Use mature technology to innovate. Whereas I think the colored screens and all that were, I think at that time, state of the art, and like they said, more expensive.
Well, the Game Gear said "fuck it," and look how well that did.
I don't think the game. Was the Game Gear considered a success or was it a failure?
Oh, it was a horrible failure.
I thought. Okay, I don't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I remember I remember people talked about it. I remember I knew people that had it.
So did I. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was a success or failure, but that explains why Sega didn't make any more of those.
No, the Game Gear was very pretty to look at, but it felt like it only lasted like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And they took like the big batteries too and everything. Mm-hmm. That's why I like
it took D batteries?
Like the big barrel ones. That's what I think it took actually, or it took an insane amount of AA's. I can't remember.
Well, I remember Game Boy had 4 AA's.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Game Gear had more than that, where they were like the big batteries. All I know is that like I want to collect a little bit more for the Game Gear because there's like a couple games on there I'd like to play, and the Analog Pocket sells like an add-on so you can play those games. So I've been tempted to collect a little bit of that.
And told Yamauchi that Game Boy would be an embarrassment if it ever came out. They wanted the project killed off. Not just to save Nintendo's reputation, but also because they wanted Yokoi knocked down a peg. There was a lot of bad blood between departments, especially with R&D 2 head Umura. If you
And
want
he was
a
wrong.
200-page story covering those years in microscopic detail, we'd recommend reading Gorge's Volume 4 book. Game Boy's just a small chapter in Yokoi's life though, so we'll cut to the crux of it. Late in development, he made a fatal mistake that almost caused him to take his own life.
Oh,
the
fuck.
viewing angle of the Game Boy's screen. To keep it in layman's terms, an LCD screen is best viewed and most visible at certain angles. Back then, when you had them made, you had to know what angle the user would look at them. Yokoi mistakenly ordered the screens with the same specs as a Game & Watch, as though gamers would look at them straight on. But because of the form factor, gamers would actually look at Game Boys with a 5-degree angle. Based on Yokoi's orders, Sharp built a $40 million factory solely to make those screens.
Oh, fuck.
And now, they were useless. Yamauchi looked at the first Game Boys coming off the line and said, "What the hell's this? You can't see nothing. What you gonna do with this? If you can't see nothing, you won't sell nothing." Then he cancelled the Game Boy outright and transferred most of R&D 1's staff to other projects. He believed a solution could be found, but other departments had been whispering in Yamauchi's ear that Game Boys are dud, and this screen problem seemed to confirm what the saboteurs had been saying.
Oh, no.
Yokoi mostly avoids talking company drama in his own biography, but in Gorge's book, R&D 1's Yoshihiro Taki doesn't hold back. Quote, "His position made people envious. Yamauchi was getting older, and the rumor was that Yokoi might take over as president one day. Different people wanted to seize power and take control of the development divisions. It was all about power. Yokoi didn't care for any of that, but he suffered from the knowledge."
That's wild to think about
I'm getting Shinra vibes from hearing this right now.
Well, this one right here, this line, just like at the court of Louis XVI, anything went for the sake of a benevolent glance from the sovereign. It's so wild to think about here.
Oh yeah, Louis XIV, the Sun King.
Nah.
They were
The
trying
divine
to
right.
oust him and sabotage his work. Under the burden of his $40 million mistake and the betrayal of his own colleagues, Yokoi fell into a deep depression. He didn't eat for weeks and seriously considered suicide. Yokoi was withering away to nothing.
Wild.
Then, as he tells it, a Chinese restaurant he frequented grew concerned and made him a special bowl of chilled tofu. He managed to get it down and finally got his appetite back. "It was incredibly delicious," he says in his biography. "I think that tofu saved my life." What was left of Yokoi's team worked in secret for weeks to fix the screen problem. Eventually, they found a compromise that unfortunately lowered the contrast, but at least made the screens usable. Yokoi ran to the president's office to show his prayers had been answered. Yamauchi begrudgingly accepted, mostly because R&D 2 was having trouble finishing the Super Famicom, and its release had gotten massively delayed.
Oh, wow.
Nintendo needed a new system in the meantime, and thus Yokoi's project was allowed to come back online. But gaming press and almost everyone at Nintendo still thought Game Boy would end up as a humiliating flop. After a few more twists and turns, it finally launched in April '89. And
they were wrong. Fuck them. Gaming press is wrong again.
Despite all the naysayers, turned out to be a huge hit. Game Boys were flying off the shelves faster than Nintendo could make them. It was Yokoi's fourth and final golden age, with Game Boy eventually going on to sell 120 million units. More than Famicom and Super Famicom combined.
Wow.
Interestingly, throughout his career, Yokoi loved getting ripped off and copied. When he saw off-brand Ultra Hands, Game & Watch copycats, and especially Sega's Game Gear, instead of getting mad, he took it as a form of flattery. Game Gear, by the way, did have a color screen, but it ate up battery like nobody's business, and was part of the reason it sold for nearly twice as much.
I always thought the screen was bigger.
Ultimately, Nintendo's
No.
handheld outsold Sega's by more than 10 to 1. There's a couple
Holy
more
shit.
stories Yokoi doesn't tell in his
Oh, yeah.
biography, but have been told by others. Like that one day Nintendo got a letter from a mother whose son had a disabled left hand and begged for a Game Boy with the buttons and D-pad reversed. Yokoi made her one in a few hours and said,
Oh, wow, that's
to tell
awesome.
Nintendo, because he wasn't supposed to do that kind of thing. A letter arrived from another mother too, this time asking for repairs on her son's Game Boy after he got hit by a car riding his bike.
Oh, wow.
Yokoi sent him a brand new one for free,
Oh.
along with
Oh,
a
that's
note
awesome.
telling the kid in the future, watch out for cars. Yokoi oversaw just about every first-party Game Boy release, though just like his producership on Famicom, for most games he was pretty hands-off. One notable exception was Dr. Mario, which he designed after Yamauchi said Game Boy's success was thanks to Tetris. He said it at a New Year's party in front of everyone, and Yokoi took offense. The idea that he owed his success to someone else's game. So, he made Dr.
Oh, confirmed. He
I-
hated
I-
Russians. There you go. I was right. I was
You were
right.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. So that's where Dr. Mario. Okay. I had no idea.
It was to say fuck you to the Russians. It was great. I love just saying offhand comments and then they turn out to be somewhat right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. That makes me laugh.
Dang Russians.
Oh, those
Tetris.
Russians.
Mario to prove his worth, which sold over 5 million copies and became the 6th best-selling Game Boy game of all time,
Oh,
plus another 5 million on Famicom. Otherwise, he mostly let his subordinates make the games, but even then, his direction was critical to the platform's success, like when he instructed the Tetris team to add a 2-player versus mode. Tetris had been invented in the Soviet Union a few years before, but wasn't a mega hit till it landed on Game Boy, where it exploded and sold 35 million copies. The only Game Boy game to ever outsell it was Pokemon. And it's at this point that Yokoi's story dovetails with a little company.
Look at those Pokemon red and green sprites. What a wonderful thing. Those things were nightmare fuel. I actually was been playing them a little bit. But they're so old that they keep glitching out and going insane on me.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare.
Yeah.
A funny thing though, our buddy Mr. Metal Shred Freak Fernando almost killed himself trying to change the battery on one of these games.
No way.
Yeah, he was not thinking too hard, so he was trying to rub the battery off, but he was rubbing it so much it got too hot and blew up in his face.
Oh no.
Yeah, he got lucky that he didn't get mess up his eye, but it came close. But it scared the shit out of me, and then we're like, "Oh, you're an idiot."
Called Game Freak. In the late 80s, gaming magazine writer Satoshi Tajiri started what today we'd call an indie studio, and worked out of an apartment with his friends to make small arcade-style games. One day he saw the newly announced Game Boy and Link cable, and thought up a game where friends trade monsters back and forth. Long story short, Tajiri pitched the idea to Nintendo, who agreed to help fund the project. And
Little did they know it would become the biggest IP in the world.
Is it the biggest IP in the world?
Yeah,
I guess it
Pokemon is the #1 IP in the world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's gonna get worse
Like the #1 video game IP, or in general?
in general.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse next year too, because it's the 30th anniversary next year.
96?
because it was
Yeah,
a Game Boy
96.
game, Yokoi took over as producer. As usual, he was pretty hands-off, but after a while, Game Freak ran out of money and couldn't continue. So, Yokoi gave him side projects to bring in money, like a Yoshi puzzle game. Not only did he lend them the IP, he also helped in the ideas stage.
Really?
Yoshi
I didn't know
released on-
this. I didn't know that Game Freak helped make a Yoshi game.
Game
I
Boy
did not know
and
that either.
Learn something new every day, yeah?
Guessing this
Famicom
is
in
Yoshi's
late
Cookie.
91 and sold just shy of 5 million copies, which gave them the funds to continue making Pokemon. Later, Game Freak ran out of cash again. So Yokoi gave him an idea for a Mario puzzle game, which released in '93 as Mario and Wario. As a creator, getting praise from Yokoi was just like being praised by my parents, said Tajiri. He was like a father to me. Looking back years later, Miyamoto said, I think this was when Tajiri learned how to take his ideas and turn them into video games. Eventually, though, Yokoi passed off the role of Pokemon's producer to Miyamoto, because he'd gotten too busy with what he intended as his last big project for Nintendo.
Oh no.
The Virtual Boy.
Yep.
Oh no.
At this point,
Yep.
Yokoi had grown disillusioned with the direction of the video game industry. In the past, it had always been about ideas. That was, after all, the basis of his philosophy. Sideways thinking with mature technology, where good ideas can beat out expensive microchips. But now it had become the era of Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis, and soon on to N64. Nintendo had fallen into the same trap as the competition that they'd for so long avoided, competing on graphics, storage capacity, and whose console could display the most colors. The Bit Wars. Software was changing too, into 50-hour RPGs, fighting games with 5-button combos, and other games that simply weren't his style. It wasn't the market style either, as games got...
He was a fucking original boomer, Brian.
Yep.
He's like these fucking kids and their graphics and stuff like that.
Yeah, where's the innovation?
People were opting out and taking up other hobbies instead. So, Yokoi decided to leave Nintendo and forge his own path in the industry to get back to its roots. He intended to leave when he turned 50, but first wanted to give Nintendo one last souvenir. A thank you gift for all Yamauchi had done for him, and a way for Yokoi to go out on a high note. He'd always been drawn to ideas that escaped the confines of a screen, so this last project would exemplify that in spades by having games jump out in 3 dimensions. It wasn't aimed at the hardcore crowd, but at the same kind of people who played Game & Watch, or never played games at all, who were more interested in having fun than following step-by-step guides and devoting hours to memorizing button combinations.
Well, yeah, he was wrong.
I mean, I remember the commercials for this, but like this was something that just was forgotten. I forgot about this for years until this popped up again. I didn't realize this was I didn't even realize this was this is considered a main console. This is a 32-bit console just with it was just very uncomfortable and nobody bought it. I think it sold 600,000 in Japan. It only sold like a little over 100,000 here in the U.S.
It's fucking terrible.
It was so bad they canceled a launch in Europe, and I think was Australia. I think was the other one, and it came out in '95. I think it came out in '95. It got discontinued like 6 months later. It got discontinued only after 5 to 6 months.
Yeah, Ando says when we getting Virtual Boy added to Nintendo Online, wouldn't take too long to have the whole library on it. I actually have a friend that has the entire library of the Virtual Boy.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never played a single game. I
don't blame you. VR already makes me sick. So I can only imagine this just really fucking with me.
Well, I mean, people like it was bad for the eyes, and they didn't, and they literally put a warning saying kids under 8 shouldn't be playing this or something. And it was not comfortable, and yeah, it had so many things going against it. So yeah.
Simply put, it was for regular folks to offer entirely new kinds of games out in the blue ocean. One of our next videos is going to be solely dedicated to the Virtual Boy, so we don't want to dive too deep here in his biography. But long story short, it ended up a failure. And Yokoi knew if he left Nintendo now, it'd look like he was resigning in disgrace. So he decided to do one more project. And quick.
He's like, nah, bro, I can't go out like this.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean when I was reading about him years ago. It said that he left because of that. He left because of the failure. It said he was dismissed because of the failure of the thing. It's good to hear that it's not true.
Yeah.
Threw together a design for the Game Boy Pocket, which he was sure would be a success. It was smaller, lighter, had a clearer screen, better battery life, and could be sold for an even lower price than the original.
So this was almost the generation that I got. I got the one right after it, the Game Boy Color.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
the Game Boy Pocket came out before the Game Boy Color. I didn't know that. I always thought the Pocket came out after the Color.
I did not think that either.
That's what I thought. I don't know.
And then pop culture's like, I got to try the Virtual Boy at a yearly fair. Didn't make him want to buy it. And then Mr. JM says, to be fair, would you want to go out on the Virtual Boy? Not willingly, no. I would say so. It's like in a sports term, it's like Peyton Manning getting blown out like 58 to like 7, and then he's like, "Nah, I gotta try one more time." You know?
It launched July 21st, 1996, 1 year to the day after Virtual Boy. A few weeks later, Yokoi got in his car and drove off the lot one last time.
It was literally
After
one last
more
time.
than 3 decades at Nintendo, he was starting a new life. Nintendo's stock plummeted when the news broke, so much so that Nintendo temporarily froze trading. A prominent newspaper reported...
Did not know that.
Didn't know that either. I mean, I heard years ago there was a rumor that Miyamoto was going to retire. I'm assuming this was like 2015, 2016. It was going around, and Nintendo stock went down because of that. So hearing this doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
That Yokoi resigned as a way of taking responsibility for Virtual Boy's failure.
Oh, there's that rumor right there that you just said.
Yep.
In response, he wrote an article of his own titled "Why I Left Nintendo," where he said, no, that's not why he resigned. Some said it was because he'd gotten fed up with Yamauchi ruling Nintendo like a dictator. Yokoi denied that too, instead praising Yamauchi and saying they'd agreed to keep working together in the future, just on different terms. It wouldn't be published till over a decade later, but in his second book, Makino reveals more personal details about his interviews with Yokoi. That resigning over one flop, the Virtual Boy, simply wasn't how things worked at Nintendo. And especially...
I didn't even know there was a
between Yamauchi and
Metroid
Yokoi.
shooter
Makino
like
was
this.
shocked.
I didn't know that either. But it's the Virtual Boy, so what do you expect? There's like 12 games for it.
Yeah.
When the usually cheerful Yokoi teared up when he talked about leaving Yamauchi's side, how in that moment he looked like a crying little kid. The two men shared a bond much deeper than just boss and employee. Back to the newspaper article though. Yokoi denied those rumors, but did say that Nintendo would come down with what he was calling the big company disease, which was basically mirroring what the competition was doing while refusing any idea that couldn't...
Look at that old school TV right there.
He's playing it. That's pretty cool.
Oh, jeez.
I have never seen this.
No, we need. We gotta get this image right here. Figure it out. Make that a loop.
That looks like an N64 mini from here.
Earn tens of millions of dollars. It wasn't the same Nintendo it used to be, and he simply didn't feel like he belonged there anymore. That's why he left, to start his own company called Koto, named for the city he was born and where he'd spent his entire life. He vowed it'd never grow bigger than 30 employees and continue his philosophy of sideways thinking, where he could putter around on fun little inventions with the kind of freedom Nintendo no longer offered. A few guys from R&D 1 went with him. He publicly teased that one of their first projects would be a new game system, but said the details would be secret for a few more years till it was ready. He was also working with doctors to bring his skills to the medical field, to combine gaming with physical rehabilitation. So if, say, someone was in an accident,
years before the Wii,
to learn to walk again, it'd make...
Ironically enough, the doctors that founded BioWare kind of got their start with that. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they were doctors, and they were just very interested in.
They just love games. That's what it was. Yeah. They just love games, and they
never got beyond. They were in medical. If I remember correctly, they were in medical school.
No, right? they got their doctorates. That's why they're called the doctors.
Oh, so did they ever?
They were practicing. So like they were making like actual like games for the medical field, and they made a little money off that, and then they started BioWare while they were still being like doctors, like they were seeing patients and stuff.
That explains why they call it BioWare. Now that I think about it.
Recovery quicker and more enjoyable for the patient.
See, this is the inspiration right here. This is how we got the little like wheelchair basketball game. Fun fact.
I didn't know that.
I'm not being serious, but I appreciate your earnesty, Brian.
Okay.
Was going well for Yokoi and his new startup. Then, on October 4th, 1997, he decided to take a day off and go play a round of golf with a friend. His friend was driving, and on the way, rear-ended the truck in front of them. So they both got out to check the damage. At that moment, a car came speeding by.
Wow. Proving once again, golf sucks ass.
Yeah. I like how they're playing the Temple of Light theme. Makes me think that's where Yokoi's soul went to the Temple of Light in the sacred realm.
His friend suffered a fractured rib, but Yokoi didn't make it. The news spread like a shockwave. I rushed to Kyoto as soon as I heard he'd been killed, said Tajiri. When he got to the funeral, he found President Yamauchi and countless industry legends who had worked for him over the decades, from Shigeru Miyamoto to Satoru Iwata, there to pay their respects and say their goodbyes. Miyamoto gave the eulogy. The only person I can proudly call my mentor even now is Yokoi-san. His philosophy in creating things made Nintendo what it is today. Press reported that as Miyamoto spoke those words, his tearful voice and trembling shoulders touched the hearts of everyone in attendance. It was a simple ceremony, but warm, reflecting the personality of the deceased. Miyamoto designed the tombstone, engraved with some of Yokoi's proudest achievements, from
explains the Triforce
and laser clay to Game & Watch and Game Boy.
1 second. I gotta.
Okay, that's what those years are, his accomplishments.
Yeah, I want to hear that one more time, though. I didn't hear them all.
Those words, his tearful voice and trembling shoulders touched the hearts of everyone in attendance. It was a simple ceremony, but warm, reflecting the personality of the deceased. Miyamoto designed the tombstone, engraved with some of Yokoi's proudest achievements, from Ultra Machine and laser clay to Game & Watch and Game Boy.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. That explains everything over here. That's interesting.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that's, and I'm liking this even more now. This is great.
Now, next time you're in Japan, you're gonna go there and just like quickly.
I am AC. We're totally going there.
You're gonna bring a piece of paper and just like do the little chalk thing and bring it home with you. It's like some ghoulish souvenir. It's like you don't understand. This is the tombstone from Gunpei over here, and this is all his accomplishments.
Yep.
Well, I wonder how that is looked at. It will be looked at in say like another culture because they clean tombstones and stuff over here. And my sister, when she was in high school as like an art class, they would do that to tombstones as well. They would go up to them and put like a paper on them, and then like do like the charcoal and do like the thing like that as part of their art project. So I don't know. That's interesting. Did you ever have something like that?
No.
I guess Wakanda was just fucked up. I don't know.
President Yamauchi stayed long after most everyone else had gone, sitting at the burial site alone with his thoughts. He didn't have much time to grieve though, because before long, behind the scenes, he heard about Yokoi's secret console project. It turned out, Bandai had hired him to design a new handheld called the WonderSwan. It was superior to Game Boy Pocket in every way. A better screen, longer battery life, a clever system-flipping concept, and at only $38 was going to sell for a significantly lower price. Yamauchi called a meeting of all Nintendo's department heads and put together a plan to make a new, color Game Boy as a response. Business was business after all, and he now had the responsibility to crush Yokoi's final creation. Nintendo announced Game Boy...
I've never heard of the WonderSwan.
Not until recently have I heard of it. I've never heard of it either.
But then we got the Game Boy Color, so this is when I got it.
A couple weeks before Bandai revealed WonderSwan, and launched it a little earlier too, all in a bid to distract gamers from the fact WonderSwan even existed. WonderSwan enjoyed a successful first few months anyway, but Nintendo aggressively cut the GBC's price to ensure its downfall. Game Boy Pocket was created solely to preserve Yokoi's honor, but Game Boy Color's purpose was to annihilate Yokoi's final invention.
It's so weird.
Never messed up. With 3.5 million units sold, it still managed to achieve second place in the Japanese handheld war, far ahead of other competitors like Sega Game Gear and Atari Lynx. Nintendo's system, of course, ultimately won out. All that said, it wasn't Game Boy Color that put WonderSwan in the grave. It was Pokemon. In 1996, Game Boy was a dead system and hadn't gotten a single new game in the months leading up to Tajiri's magnum opus. But Pokemon slowly and steadily grew into a global phenomenon that, over the next few years, resurrected.
I started with Squirtle on my playthrough. I called him Bonsai.
Bonsai? Squirrel?
Bonsai.
The Game Boy boom. Game Boys went from selling 4 million units a year to almost 20 million. And a new wave of hundreds more games came out to ride Pokemon's coattails. If not for that, the WonderSwan would have easily beat out all the competition to become the generation's dominant handheld. In an ironic twist of fate, Tajiri had unintentionally dealt a crushing blow to Yokoi's last legacy. The circumstance had played out in a tragic conclusion, as competing ambitions between surrogate fathers and sons. There was a silver lining, though, for Yokoi's lasting memory, because he'd also designed a puzzle game for WonderSwan's launch, which ended up as his own swan song. It was posthumously named Gunpei in his honor and released to critical acclaim 2 years after his death. Famitsu scored it 33 out of 40. Coming from them, that's high praise, 4 points higher than they even gave Pokemon. Gunpei was too good to be forgotten, so it eventually got ported to PlayStation, DS, and nowadays you can even get it on smartphones.
Well, look at that. I might need to pick this game up.
Gunpei.
I get it.
All right, I'll write this down. Gunpei.
Ando says, so they stomped out his last invention, and then their device gets a second win of an idea he initially had.
The WonderSwan playing Gunpei even got a few cameos in the newest Evangelion movie. In fact, if you know what to look for, you'll find Yokoi references and Easter eggs all over the place. The primary mechanic in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was named Ultra Hand. The love tester was a treasure in Pikmin 2.
Oh, really?
Everything
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Super Smash Bros. Is an homage in one way or another. The list goes on. Perhaps the biggest dedication of all is a good chunk of the new Nintendo Museum, where you can interact with some of Yokoi's iconic inventions, and even
we didn't get to go.
Of the original.
Damn it! Now I gotta go.
Yokoi's legacy is more than just countless homages, though, because Nintendo may have lost their way for a while in the 90s, but eventually found their way back. When the Wii was announced, a Japanese journalist asked why it was so underpowered compared to PlayStation and Xbox. Nintendo's new president, Satoru Iwata, told them, "Gunpei Yokoi taught us to think laterally with withered technology and compete with our ideas. His protege, Miyamoto, inherited his philosophy, and when I took the role of Nintendo's president, I decided to continue that corporate culture and stay on Yokoi's path." In Japan, the Wii and DS were both viewed as a return to Yokoi's ideas, after Nintendo had spent the past decade trying to compete directly with the likes of Sony, a battle they were, frankly, unable to win. But all that changed with the Wii, which went on to outsell PlayStation and Xbox. The DS also outsold the much more powerful Sony PSP at a rate of almost 2 to 1. Nintendo stayed on Yokoi's path for generations to come, sideways thinking, escaping the confines of a TV screen, and the blue ocean. In 2003, Yokoi was posthumously awarded the GDC Lifetime Achievement Award, which his wife and son accepted on his behalf. If not for that car accident, today he'd be 83 years old. The man who gave so much to gaming undoubtedly would have given more if he had the chance, and probably taught the lame to walk. In a reprint of Yokoi's original 1997 biography, Makino added a new epilogue, ending with these words: "This book will probably be forgotten someday, but even if it is, there'll surely come a day when people will want to read it again, because Yokoi's words are filled with the essence of what makes games fun." And, well, here we are, fulfilling that prophecy. A colleague once said, "It's a pity he died too soon, but in life he taught us how to live." We'll be back.
There we go. That's a good way to end it right there.
That was a great way to end it. I agree.
Yeah, no need to have him pratter on and mess the rest of that good ending up right there.
Soon with a video.
Please subscribe. Please subscribe, and please leave a comment. It'll help grow our channel.
I will say that was really informative, really well done. Definitely a lot of information out there I kind of want to look into myself, especially with those books.
You gonna leave a comment?
Maybe. Well, definitely leave a like. But yeah, if you guys want to watch that again too, link to the original channel is out there. So if you can, thank you for leave a little thank you to them on their page as like a like and a comment. Just help their channel out. Did you know gaming? They're a huge channel, obviously. So they don't need that much help, but always pass it along, because we did just watch their entire 1 hour video and made it more transformative, and it was really well researched. Like I said,
it was well researched. I liked. There was a lot of great. They found a lot. They dug and found a lot of great footage to use, and there was a lot of things that even I didn't know. So they did their due diligence.
Yeah, that's for sure. Really great documentary there, and really good to learn about like another icon of gaming. Like I said,
I think I'm now, after watching this, I'm a Yokoi fanboy now.
yeah, definitely got a new perspective on stuff. Like I said, a lot of things today. A lot of people think that gaming sucks and everything else like that, but
I got this pen Japan, by the way.
Oh, nice.
APA.
But it's good to just always remember that there's always really great stuff that you can learn about gaming to this day, and I definitely learned a lot from that episode. A lot more of my gaming knowledge has definitely expanded from this. I learned so much, and kind of can't wait to go back and just collect some other stuff that my wife will surely get pissed off that I decided to collect. That's for sure.
Man, I think I want one of those ultra hands now.
I want an ultra hand. I want the lion one. That's what I want. Yeah, just shoot the lion. It falls down like one of those like really shitty toys.
And then it gets back up.
I know, it's great. I'm like, I want that now. I want that just to bring over to see what my father-in-law does and be like, here you go, old man. Even you can understand this concept.
Did I fire 6 shots or only 5?
Make my day, punk. So Mr. Nerdporial, thank you for joining me tonight. It was very fun to have you on, and yeah, I hope you learned a lot and liked this new format that I've been doing.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed watching this. You told me do not watch the video under any circumstance. So I did do some research ahead of time just to refamiliarize myself with Yokoi, but without I mean it's just like the basics and all that. So, but yeah, it's always fun to for me, I mean I don't play as much video games now, but I really like to. Especially now I'm older, I like to especially things I liked as a kid. I like to know as much about what I really connected with. I like to know as much about it as possible, like the history and all that. And that's how it's been for me with like everything. That's kind of why I started my channel was to not only make videos and just and talk about stuff I like, but also for my own sake, for my own research. For me to learn more and to get a deeper understanding. So
yeah, and I just like being able to be more informed about video game history and just about video games in general. Like I say, I know a lot about gaming, and it's always awesome to keep learning more and more new stuff because there's so many people online that just kind of talk out their asses, and it feels good to just be able to sit down and actually I want to do the research again. And I want to be able to be informed, and I really don't like to talk out of my ass. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. So,
yeah, I agree.
So this was very fun. This is great. Learned a lot. Like I said, this the TV show icons that I reference every now and then. Like I wish we could get like that brought back again one day and do stuff like Did You Know Gaming and other channels are doing with this stuff because this is really good. That was a really good documentary.
I agree.
It's wild how fast that kind of went through, is so yeah, with that being said, Mr. Nerdporo, would you like to plug yourself, upcoming streams, so on and so forth?
Sure. I mean, I don't really have any showporials planned. Well, I have one, but that's not till like a month. That's like a month from now. So I have one showporial planned, and I might do another one. I think for next week though. Yeah, well, next week I'm probably going to have one for my current read of Wheel of Time, so Path of Daggers on Thursday. But I don't think anyone here talks or knows Wheel of Time. So, but that's where I've been currently reading, and I need to. My goal is to finish that series before the year ends, so that I can move on to something else, and you finally get 14 books, finally see how everything, how the story plays out. So yeah. And then gaming wise, I have been meaning to play more. I might even do a game stream or something, but I gotta beat Dino Crisis. I might try to beat it this weekend. I'm halfway through the game.
Very nice.
So yeah, so these black dinosaurs with these big fangs are just killing me left and right. So yeah, I'm in like the armory now. So yeah.
All right, very cool, very cool. His channel is linked in the YouTube description here, so just click on that. It'll take you directly to his channel, and make sure you subscribe and give this man a follow. Very, very fun guy, salt to the earth. Looking forward to our next time we hang out there, Mr. Brian. It's gonna be fun.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I like I said, like just very. I'm a Gunpei. I think I'm a Gunpei fanboy now.
Yeah, and definitely gotta look into getting that Gunpei one for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
As for me, people, we will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central. We had a minor cancellation at the last minute. Nassimer had to push back, so there will be no early afternoon show. But we will have a 7 p.m. show tomorrow with one Vincent Martin. It will be one of the final 2 episodes of the RNG podcast before we refocus and rebrand to just doing more spotlight of creators. So he will be on at 7 p.m. Central to talk about his YouTube channel, gaming, and other fun stuff. Might be a little bit of drama. You never know. It's going to be fun regardless. And Sunday, we have a special Sunday episode with the final episode of the RNG podcast. And joining me will be Dragon Treasure Tees. He's going to be on. We're going to be talking about making teas and video games and other things in between. So that's going to be a special 5 p.m. Central Time on Sunday. And then the last show of the month will be a Monday show. And Monday, let me rephrase that. And because it's the last day of the year, last day of the year. Jesus, I'm tripping over myself. Last day of the month, sorry. So since it's the last day of the month, that means it's the special monthly recap of video games we've been playing. So obviously I will be joined by some new guests, and this time we're going to have Mr. Cage Gaming, and we're also going to have McDizzle Gaming as well come back on. And we're going to sit down and talk about the video games we played for the month of June, as well as looking forward to what is coming out for the month of July. So if you're looking for new and interesting games to check out, this will be the time to do it. This will be, I think I started in February. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe it was March or April. But love doing these things. Love sharing video game stuff with people. And yeah, it's definitely going to be very fun in the future to keep doing these things. But I got a lot of fun games I've been playing. And if you haven't seen it yet, I have been posting more collections and all my video game pickups on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested to see what I got today, I got a new 3DS for my collection. I got the Persona Q 3DS, which is one of my Grail consoles, and I got it. So if you want to take a look at that, if you didn't know what that there was a Persona 3DS, well, now you'll be able to see it. Yeah. So with that being said, everyone, I will see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful night and enjoy the rest of your weekend regardless. Peace out.